Here's Jeff Marek, the host of the Sheet.
Hey.
Daily, noon Pacific time on the Nation Network.
Get the promo.
I'm fantastic. We're fantastic. How are you?
Good. It's a little bit of a crazy time all around hockey. Not just NHL, but Frozen Four, CHL playoffs getting going. I've spent a good part of this week at the OHL Cup, which is a showcase tournament essentially for U16 kids. And I will tell you, I've gone to this tournament for so many years. I don't know that I've seen this many college recruiters at the OHL Cup in Toronto than I have this year. But nonetheless, probably a story for another day. Anyhow, yeah, busy time, fun time.
What's your understanding that happened with our old friend John Tortorella in Philadelphia? Before we get on to Tocchet and all the but what happened with Torts? Because they were going to make a decision after the season, and he was a big part of the management group, actually, working closely with Daniel Briere and Keith Jones. And suddenly he makes some comments and he's out. What happened with Torts?
I don't know. I don't know. I can't be Pacific, as we say in the Atlantic. I don't really have any of the specifics on this. I think we all saw Kevin Kurz's report this morning about maybe both sides going a little bit too far. Like, look, the one thing. The relationship between John Tortorella and Cam York hasn't been good from day one. I think we can all recall as Cam York turned pro with the Philadelphia Flyers, there was the expectation he was going to make the team. And I think Torts cut him and sent him down to the American Hockey League within a couple of skates as well. We wondered if this was a test, if there was just like some legit friction between the two, but it seems as if the friction perhaps never went away. And like, look, this is... Sometimes with young players, coaches like John Tortorella and John himself, obviously, will test them to see how they react to different situations. Some will get stronger, some will wilt. I think that is what veteran coaches do with young kids sometimes. But the thing about John Tortorella is, and this is not unlike other coaches, and I think of Mike Keenan specifically, where they want to sort of test the power base on their teams. And perhaps that is one of the reasons why he went after a very unpopular decision, as we all found out quickly, to go after Sean Couturier. But it seemed as if there was something that perhaps never went away between Cam York and John Tortorella, going back to those early days, as we all thought that York was going to be a Philadelphia Flyer. I don't know the specifics of what was said, how it was said, the contents of, but I am very much of the belief, along with you guys, that this was a decision that was going to be made in the off season. I was under the impression that, much like Barry Trotz, John Tortorella was going to make the transition to management at a certain point. Whatever happened in Toronto between Cam York and John Tortorella ice those plans. And the thing about it too is a lot of this is entirely predictable. When you do something in a media market like Toronto, there's going to be extra heft. There's going to be extra gravity attached to it. One of the first examples of this, I mean, this is going back a couple of generations here, but we're all the same vintage. You guys will remember Steve Kasper and how he handled Cam Neely and Kevin Stevens in that game against the Toronto Maple Leafs on that Saturday night where he benched him. That did not go well for Steve Kasper. It became a major media issue and was really embarrassing for Cam Neely. So you know what you're doing when you do something in a market like Toronto. There are no small stories. Like, there are some markets where there's no Vancouver. You guys know it. In Vancouver, there are no small stories, and in Toronto, there are no small stories. So this was going to be a big one way or another. But as far as the specifics of who said what to who and how it was relayed, I don't know the answers to that one.
So the moral of this story is, if you're going to have a tantrum, have it in Columbus. That's what
on a Tuesday night. On a Tuesday.
It's always a Tuesday, right?
Absolutely. Pick a Tuesday.
When we want to denigrate a Tuesday in Columbus.
But could you pick a worse coach for a guy, for a team that has, Michkov and Brink and Forster and Drysdale and York, and like it's a young team now. And I can't think of, and maybe this is unfair, I can't think of a worse coach than John Tortorella for those guys.
I will say one thing. I will say something that when you're going through a rebuild, the worst thing you can do is have everybody get used to the losing. Like the losing is baked into the pie. Like that's going to happen. We're rebuilding, that there's going to be losses here. But much like Martin St. Louis in Montreal doesn't tolerate the losses or doesn't use a rebuild as an excuse for the losses, I think you want that around your team. Does Tortorella go a little bit too far sometimes? Well, yes, obviously he does. But listen, last year we were talking about, John Tortorella, Coach of the Year. Look what he's done with this Philadelphia Flyers squad. Now, I do understand like your point about do you want a coach like John Tortorella around this many kids where there's that level of frustration that comes along with the learning? Yeah, probably not. But the one thing that Tortorella did instill in this team of losing isn't going to be acceptable, even though we're going through a rebuild. Now, I do think, like, I'm a firm believer in the pendulum theory that it's going to swing completely to a coach that caters to younger players. That's why I've been trying to remind as many people as I can to have, don't forget here about Pat Ferschweiler at Western Michigan. That would be the one, he played on a line with Keith Jones at Western Michigan so many years ago. He handles what I would think is Philly's number one prospect in Alex Bump, who is a 5th-round draft pick from 2022, who might be their best prospect right now. This kid has been incredible. Some will even internally will put him over as someone like Jet Lachenko as far as like next elite young prospects coming out of the Flyers organization. Western Michigan still playing in the tournament, so we're not going to get into that. But that's the kind of coach that I think we're probably looking at next year for the Philadelphia Flyers. Someone that's used to being around kids, developing kids, and getting them ready for that next level of their career.
I'm sorry, but Rick Tocchet doesn't coach at Western Michigan, Jeff.
He doesn't wear 22 in orange.
Yeah.
What paper are you reading?
I'm not sure if he played on a line with Jonesy at some point. But I know they're big buddies, and everyone across the national media told me yesterday that Rick Tocchet is going to be the next head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers. But
everybody was drawing the direct line. I honestly, I keep coming back to Ferschweiler. Like, I think there's going to be a couple of coaches here coming out of the tournament this year. They're going to have some decisions. Like, I wonder about David Carl in Denver. I wonder about Jay Pandolfo as well. Chicago is, going to make a decision on a coach here. Boston's going to make a decision on a coach here. I think there'll be a few coaches coming out of the tournament this year that have a chance to maybe finally dip their beak into the NHL fountain, even though, Ferschweiler was an assistant with the Detroit Red Wings. I know we're all looking at Rick Tocchet and saying, okay, well, bring the Flyer home. It's kind of an obvious move, but I don't know that I'm there yet, that all possibilities are done with Vancouver and Rick Tocchet. I mean, we sat here a week ago and, I was saying, like, the Tocchet that I know, like, doesn't just bail on a team, and I still firmly believe that. I understand the sexy story that is Rick Tocchet goes back to Philadelphia. I'm just not sure that that's how it's going to play out. Again, this is still all fresh, and we're all throwing darts and trying to figure out what's going to happen here. But I'm a little bit warmer to the Western Michigan coach than the Vancouver coach right now for Philly.
Let me ask.
I was going to say I think the Vancouver Canucks probably lose some leverage if he makes the playoffs. How much do you think that sways what the offer is that ultimately comes in from the Canucks? I would get, because they don't go on the cap. You can pay your coach whatever you want.
Yep.
But I'm sure Francesco Aquilini's probably looking at the request from the coach and from Rutherford subsequently and saying, but that guy didn't get us in the playoffs, and he's asking for that. But if he does make the playoffs, all of a sudden he looks like a miracle worker, doesn't he? It could be a big few weeks here in terms of the Canucks meeting the number that Rick Tocchet wants.
Well, and if they make the playoffs, it's massive because they're chasing the hottest team in the NHL. who has a schedule that, I mean, when I look at the St. Louis Blues schedule and put it up against the Vancouver Canucks schedule, I know there's a couple of games against Colorado here and a couple of other tough teams as well. They face off against Winnipeg as well, but St. Louis has the easier schedule. Like, if Vancouver's going to do this, like, they're really going to earn it, Blake.
That's right.
And that's why
right.
that's why I'd say, like, yeah, okay, all of a sudden now that does warm the conversation up a little bit more around Rick Tocchet, because it'd
be a convincing hot streak.
Not because you're not. Yeah, these aren't just like layups and 2-foot putts that you're going to pick up points with. Like, if Vancouver's going to do this, Vancouver's going to earn these wins and earn their way in. Thank you very much. And it starts with a game tonight against the Columbus Blue Jackets, another team that's, you know, fighting desperately, trying to get into the wild card picture in the Eastern Conference. So Vancouver will have. Put it this way: it'll be an impressive performance. The Vancouver Canucks can make it in the playoffs. It will really be an impressive performance.
Let's analyze this on the team evolution, player personnel levels. Because the one thing about taking over a team that has stated we're in a rebuild, as Daniel Briere did not 2 years ago.
Yeah.
You go in there as a head coach, you got some leash, right? Nobody expects you to win. So you probably have a couple of years where you can do a whole lot of losing there, and unless there are issues with the players, off-ice matters, whatever, you've got job security. In Vancouver, we know the stakes. Got to make the playoffs every year.
Yep.
And then there's the personnel side of things, Jeff. Like, if you're in Tocchet's shoes, you've traded Bo Horvat, JT Miller. Like, do you not want to know what's going on with Elias Pettersson and what the plan is at center ice, even if you're keeping Pettersson beyond Pettersson?
Of course you do.
Before you get
and what's happening in net, and is it going to be? Are they extending Thatcher Demko? Is that in the cards here? Like, to me, like, honestly, I always think about. And this is the question too with the Philadelphia Flyers. Anybody going in there? I always think about Joel Quenneville, and Joel Quenneville, when he interviews for jobs, only asks one question, as I'm told. You know what that question is?
What's that?
Who's our goalie? That's it. That's it, right? Is there, because there is no position that is linked more to a coach's fate than the goaltender.
True.
Right. Yep. And we've been having this discussion about the Philadelphia Flyers, you know, going back, and I think we'll bracket Carter Hart out of this conversation right now. But we've been having this conversation about the Philadelphia Flyers going back to Ron Hextall in 1987 with the Philadelphia Flyers. And if I think, like, honestly, to me, that is a sane question to ask if you're any coach, and even if you're Rick Tocchet. Okay, you know, Patrick, Jim, what's happening in net? Sure, you want to know what's happening down the middle. Absolutely. What is the future of Quinn Hughes? But who is our goalie? Because every coach knows that his future is joined at the hip to whoever the starting goaltender is.
Well, I don't think the Canucks can extend Demko this summer without greater clarity on his health moving forward.
Of course.
I think your goaltenders are going to be Lankinen and Demko
for next year,
because I just don't see the appetite to trade Demko. You know, you've been through a couple of years here where you've really learned to appreciate the value of a number 2 and even a number 3 goaltender.
Yeah.
But what I am interested in, like, LeBrun reported the Canucks are desperate to re-sign him. Patrick Allvin has vocalized that strong desire several times, where he talked about, we want to get his name on a contract sooner rather than later. And Tocchet has been the one throwing up sort of, if not stop signs, yield signs, saying, I've got my hands full. I'm wholly focused on this playoff push. And Blake and I have been discussing it. And look, that could be 100% face value, that he just doesn't want to multitask with his own contract and wants to wholly focus on the team. That could mean that the offer or offers or starting points or the money aren't really there yet. And so he's willing to let him stoop a little bit here and see if the offers improve. And then, of course, it could also be what else is out there and who else wants me?
I mean, take a pick.
position
Like,
from
you know,
this one.
I mentioned, you know, Chicago a second ago and Boston a second ago. The Buffalo Sabres probably have some decisions here to make in the offseason. Those actually start higher than the coach as well. But Nashville, I know that Barry Trotz doesn't want to do it. You know, Barry Trotz in his heart, I think, is still a coach and doesn't want to hang this on Andrew Burnett. Does something happen in Anaheim? As maybe crazy as this sounds, and maybe if they get into the playoffs, all of that goes away. But do the Islanders make a move behind the bench as well? Or is it the move with Lou Lamoriello, which is a very sensitive one, as we all understand? And then does that mean that it's one or the other, and either Wass stays or Lou Lamoriello gets, you know, promoted and a new GM comes in? And then there's always like one surprise team that comes out at you like, bam, and they just dismiss their coach, mainly because someone like Rick Tocchet becomes available. And let's not discount that too. And I also think that, not that I'm saying like that, you know, Rick Tocchet is being insincere when he talks about I'm just focusing on right now, but look, we're all human beings. Like I have a hard time believing that, not for 1 second, is Rick Tocchet considering the marketplace in the NHL and thinking about, you know, his position either in Vancouver or with another team. I don't think it consumes him, and I don't think he's acting on any of it, obviously, but it's hard to believe that there's not a part of him that, you know, over lunch with friends is talking about or thinking about what the future is going to hold for Rick Tocchet, because there will be a marketplace for someone like Rick Tocchet if he's not going to go back to Vancouver.
Before you go, you mentioned the Blues schedule, and yet at the same time, I look at a team that's won 8 straight games and wonder, is this one of those win streaks where it gets to 8, 9, or 10 games, but then you lose 3 or 4 in a row after that, just because that's just what happens often. But Minnesota also nips their skid in a butt a little bit with a big come from behind win last night. Do either of these teams look ripe for 3 or 4 losses in a row that give the Canucks or Flames a chance, or do you think it's just too big a gap at this point for the Chase Pack to catch up?
I can't see, like, the way that St. Louis is playing right now. Like, look, they got a couple of games against Colorado, and their next game is against the Avalanche, and nobody wants to touch Colorado. It is like maybe the most frightening team in the NHL, and they're third in their division, and nobody wants to go near them, right? Like they are terrifying. No one wants to touch them. I don't know. I keep, to be honest, but I keep waiting for the wheels to completely fall off the wagon with the Minnesota Wild. This has been a really impressive performance by John Hines and his crew. This really is. I know we're giving the Jack Adams to Spencer Carberry, and rightfully so. He's had a tremendous season with the Washington Capitals. But man, what John Hines has been able to do with Minnesota without Kaprizov, without Joel Eriksson, and now they're back skating, it's nothing short of miraculous. So I keep waiting. Like, if there's one team that I can see the wheels falling off, it's Minnesota. But Blake, I've said it ever since the Kaprizov injury. Like, they can do it for a couple of games, but they can't. You know, what's the old saying? Like, you can reasonably expect a man to walk on a tightrope for, for 2 years, but you can't expect him to walk on a tightrope for 20 years. It's a quote about nuclear weapons and the tightrope that everybody walks on here. You can expect it for a short amount of time, but you can't expect it for a long time, and that's why I keep waiting for Minnesota to fall off. But they haven't.
And the Oilers are lucky they're at 87 points. If the Oilers were at 84 points, I'd be
I know. Quickly, because I know you have to run, but my little special thing for you every week, Jeff.
Oh, my little treat. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, a little flavor puck.
Highest scoring NHL player who played college hockey.
College hockey.
Mm-hmm. Most NHL points from a guy who played college hockey. If you want the point total, I can give it to you.
Who played college hockey?
1420. It's a hell of a lot of points.
It's not Joe Nieuwendyk, is it?
Joe Nieuwendyk is 4th. In fact, there's 2 British Columbians in the top 5.
Paul Kariya?
Paul Kariya is not one of them. I knew you'd go there, but alas, he did not.
I said BC.
The concussions and everything, yeah.
Who is it? I don't know. Who is it?
Adam Oates.
Really?
Of course.
Rensler.
Yes.
Brett Hull, number 2. Then Brindamore, number 3.
Yeah.
1 British Columbian. And Glenn Anderson, all the way back at Denver University. Also a British Columbian.
Wow.
That's good. I should
Are
add
your
Oates.
top 5?
It's
I
embarrassing.
think there's like 14 of them too that
Brett
have broken.
Hull. I would not have guessed him as a college guy.
Yeah,
That's
there's
funny.
like 13 of them too that have cracked 1,000.
And
points.
maybe, as far as hockey players go, maybe and I'm gonna hear it now from the lacrosse fans. Oates may have been the best lacrosse playing NHLer ever.
Nieuwendyk was on the lacrosse players.
Nieuwendyk, and absolutely. But as I talked to more people in lacrosse, like Oates was elite. And
I assume Tavares played too. Did Tavares not play?
Yeah.
Well, his uncle, he did, and his uncle, the legend in the NLL, who shares the same name. Absolutely. Yeah.
Have a good week. Thanks for this.
Thanks, gentlemen. Talk in 7 days.